Is it recording?
Oh, yeah.
What? Really?
Yeah. We have everything we just said.
Well. Welcome back to Something Interesting. Let's crack open a Brewster. And let's begin. With me today, I have my co-host, Joe Young. I'm Antonio Marisi. Joe, say hi.
Hello.
Last week, we talked about genotyping and should you get one if you're going to have a child, or being a dick, and then other various little things. Joe, is there any follow-up you'd like to start off with today?
No.
Nope.
Fresh out of follow-up. Sold my last batch.
Well, how you been today then, Joe? It's been a sec.
It's been a sec.
Yes.
I saw you yesterday.
I know. That's a problem that I've been meaning to say. You hear these podcasts, people talking like, oh, they have their nice normal conversation before anything. You and I can't really do that as much because we talk to each other, I would say, on a daily basis.
Pretty much, yeah.
That's kind of, is that a problem to you? Because sometimes I feel like when we start this off, it should be like a normal conversation. Like, oh, get everybody acclimated, sit down, open your Brewster, and then we get into the interesting things. What do you think?
Okay. The biggest issue that I know you know about is we'll be talking about something and like on our Google Doc of things that we want to talk about on the podcast, we'll start like talking about one of those, and then one of us will just go, no, stop it. Save it for the podcast. Otherwise, it's like we've both already heard it, and then I won't ask like questions to get more information.
That's true.
Because I'll feel like I already know it. So.
Hey, Joe.
Hey.
Do you know what artificial intelligence is?
I know. I am vaguely familiar with the idea behind it. Yeah.
Okay. So I have been looking into this recently, and there has been sort of some questions that I'd like to pose a little bit to you on the ethics of AI and things like that. But
Okay.
let's start off with a little bit of background. We're going to go back to 1956. This is when sort of the pioneering of AI started off in the Dartmouth.
1956?
Yeah.
Dang.
It was the Dartmouth Summer Project.
Okay.
And it was funded by the Rockefeller Foundation, and it was a group of about 10 scientists put together, and they started to make these basic AI sort of programs. And how they did it was they didn't have the computing to make it on a whole grand scale, so they made micro worlds. So somebody would say, a computer could never do X. And then they would say, well, they could do X in this constrained micro world. Sort of just proving that, yes, it's possible. We can eventually get to this.
Like, what would be like an example of like?
There was, here, let me pull up a little thing from a little book I've been reading. It's called Superintelligence by Nick Bostrom. So, like, the ELIZA program was able to impersonate like a Rogerian psychotherapist.
Okay.
And in the mid-1970s, the program Shrdlu showed how a simulated robotic arm in a simulated world of geometric blocks could follow instructions and answer questions in the English. English that were like typed down and whatnot.
Oh, that's interesting.
These were super constrained. If you had put them into the real world, I don't think they'd ever be able to do anything whatsoever. And because of the technological limitations, we sort of went into a winter, an AI winter. Nothing was happening, and a lot of the funding just disappeared.
Yeah, you know how your money just goes away during the
does.
winter, holiday season and all that?
And then, so around the 1980s was when the first winter thawed, is how they say it in the book, because of the Japanese. Nothing inspires innovation as well as competition.
Yeah.
Sort of like the Russia and America going to the moon. That's how I think if that never happened, that feud with Russia, we would have been screwed.
That feud? You mean the Cold War?
It's a feud. It's still a feud.
Like the Hatfield McCoys.
But that's what got us to the moon. And this sort of brought us into a new age that really didn't actually get us too far. It was still constrained by technological constraints. It was too primitive at the time.
Okay.
It built upon it, and I think neural networks started to become a thing, but it did not go as far as they would like it.
Okay.
Now, the big jump was in the 90s, the best time to be alive. And this
Naturally.
This
Only
is-
90s kids will remember.
This is when like neural networking, genetic coding, these things blew up. And this is when, in 1997, the chess champion, he was beaten by an AI. What happened was, in 1997, Garry Kasparov.
Is that how you pronounce it?
That's Russian, I think.
I wanted to look it up and get my computer to say it.
Yeah,
but
Kasparov. It's
too
not a
late now.
hard name.
No, but it's more fun to get my computer
Would
to
you
say
like
it.
to do the computer to say it?
No.
Okay. He was beaten within a mere 19 moves. So
Okay.
how people used to think AI would have to work with chess is they'd have to think of it like a human does. They
Mhm.
would have to think of certain strategies. They'd have to think of what their competitor is thinking. They'd have to bend their strategy to work with what their competitor is doing.
Okay.
Things such as that. So they said this is the pinnacle of human intelligence. If you can make an AI that does this, well then you've cracked into what the human brain can do.
Mhm.
It was actually much simpler than that. Essentially, what they did is the opponent would make a move. It would scan the board. It
Okay.
was out of hundreds of options. It would say, "This is the best move," and it would just move there. It would just
Okay.
consistently keep
Yeah.
doing this back and forth. I think there's about 200,000 plays that could be made a turn.
Mhm.
And within 19 moves, the world chess champion looked down, knew he was going to lose, and forfeited right then and there.
Okay.
Now, this, to me, was extremely cool because it sort of proved that AI, or even our thinking, is not always as complicated as it can be, or to translate it onto a computer wouldn't be as complicated as we think it would be.
Mhm.
But one of the biggest breakthroughs was recently in 2016 when the Go champion was beat.
Okay. Yeah.
Go is a Japanese game, I believe, and recently the world champion was beat by an AI.
Mhm.
This one was more of a breakthrough in my opinion because there are more moves in Go than there are atoms in the universe.
Okay.
So they weren't able to calculate all the moves and then figure out this is the best one to do.
Mhm.
They actually had to learn sort of like a human does
Okay.
through generations of learning. Essentially, they have a whole bunch of networks and they each try to do the task. The ones that do well, they stay. The ones that don't, they die, and then they keep building on top of each other until they know what they're talking about. This has actually happened in games like Mario. They've dropped AI in Mario, and
Mhm.
it's no instruction, no nothing. It
Okay.
figures out what to do. It's actually kind of crazy because they look like a speedrunner at one point. They just fly through the level.
Okay.
What we found out is that these things are great at thinking.
Mhm.
It's not that hard to actually make it think. The problem that we have with AI is that it's working in the natural world, having common sense, being able to interact with natural objects in a certain way. Just
Yeah.
really, not the thinking part, the output part.
Okay.
Slowly, we're getting there.
Mhm.
Like we've had AI who we've put into a robot that has 4 limbs.
Yeah.
Doesn't know it has limbs.
Mhm.
It figures out at one point, all right, these are my limbs. All right, now I can move, and so on and so forth.
Okay.
Or if you look at Google, they have projects with different different beings, different
Yeah.
models, where they put it in, and it teaches itself to walk. It teaches itself to
Oh,
jump
okay,
over
that's-
things.
Yeah.
And if you watch it, you see it go and then die and then die and then die and then now it's walking. Now it's getting up. Now it's jumping over things. It's recognizing what's in front of it and jumping over it. It's learning by itself,
Mhm.
which to me is extremely scary at times.
Yeah.
Because just this incredible knowledge it can learn. Like our brains, they're powerful computers, but they're
This is
slow.
true.
But they're slow computers. They forget things.
Mhm.
They have little memory. When we want to communicate to one another, we have to go through our mouths, and even that is not reliable.
Yeah.
A computer can then also learn from everywhere else, store all of the knowledge, and learn at an incredible pace.
Mhm.
Now, if we start using these for certain decision making, recently, AI has been controversial because Elon Musk, Stephen Hawking, Bill Gates, they're all
Yeah.
saying we shouldn't have this, especially when it comes to wartime. They're thinking of making AI to put into guns
Yes.
or to machines to
Mhm.
figure out who to kill.
Yeah.
But the thing, how do we figure that out? Is it based on their race? Is it based on how they look? Is it what we could see in their eyes? Because you don't know what's behind what somebody's thinking.
Mhm.
So how does it make that decision to shoot that one person? You could be killing innocent people left and right.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
I think that people like Stephen Hawking and Elon Musk, they're very intelligent people, obviously,
Mm-hmm.
but they're not authorities on AI,
Okay.
right? Like how a biologist knows a lot about chemistry,
Mm-hmm.
but they're not a chemist
Right.
by any means. Like recently on the chemistry subreddit, I saw a post and there was this guy talking about how he worked with a bunch of biologists and a bunch of MDs who were all trying to figure one thing out that to him, in his chemistry education, was just obvious,
Mm-hmm.
but they didn't know it.
Right.
And I feel like being really intelligent, like Stephen Hawking and Elon Musk, they have a good understanding of how things work. Plus, Elon Musk just like does whatever he wants.
Yeah.
He's created a lot of things. But just because they say something doesn't make it true,
Mm-hmm.
which is, I feel like a lot of people have a difficult time with that. They just see someone who's an authority in one field
Mm-hmm.
and just assume that they know a lot about everything. With that said, I do think that weapons under the control of artificial intelligence could inflict a greater amount of damage in like a wartime setting
Mm-hmm.
than just people,
Right.
because they're more accurate. They don't have like emotions behind what they're doing.
Right.
Yeah, which could be both to their benefit or to their detriment to not have emotions. Like House, the show House MD.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it's a good example where he is kind of showed as a guy who never has emotions, and he just does what he thinks when he thinks it needs to be done. And a big point of the show is that the people who work for him, the people in a fellowship, they have like emotions that like influence the way that they act. So
Mhm.
like he'll say, go do this one thing to this one patient, and someone will disagree with him, and they'll go behind his back and do it. But in doing this, they'll notice something new.
Mhm.
So I think that you can gain vital information. I think you can gain vital information from being a human, from seeing something, from emotions being involved,
Right.
than just using AI. So I feel like AI could be used to just brute force things,
Mm-hmm.
but you couldn't have a war fought entirely by AI.
Right. Now, with wartime fought AI, there's a lot of decision making, as
Mhm.
in what to do, who to attack, where to go, that kind of thing. But let's just take it on a smaller scale. Let's not think of it as wartime, but an AI that is made to make the right decision.
Okay.
Okay.
So like it's
It is
controlling something and it figures out who is who and who to kill.
well, it can be that, but it could be on a different way.
Okay.
Such as just any decision,
So like viewing war more like as a game of chess
I guess.
where it like figures out cause and effects, what could happen,
Mhm.
and it says this is the best course of
Yeah.
action, something like that.
If we think about it in wartime, yes,
Okay.
for that. Should we follow that thing? This thing that we have programmed to look at every outcome,
Mm-hmm.
to look at everything, and it makes this best decision, even if we disagree on it, should we be following that sort of order? Like in a spaceship,
Mm-hmm.
let's say there's something malfunctioning and there's a 5% chance of you surviving if you open this door, but that means for sure you'll get home, or a 20% chance if you keep the door shut, and then there's some chance of you getting home,
Okay.
right? An AI might think you should keep the door closed because you have a higher probability of staying alive.
Mm-hmm.
But you think I should risk it for that 5%
Yep.
and go out. But the AI says this is the right decision. Should we be following decisions like that
Mhm.
if it's based on an AI that is meant to make these
Yeah.
sort of decisions?
When a pilot is flying through the clouds, he doesn't see anything. He follows his instruments.
Mm-hmm.
So in things like that, when you don't know what to do, there's no clear anything to follow, you follow the instruments.
Right.
But like how I had said earlier about emotions being an important part, the guy who wants to get home going against the AI saying stay in the pod, that way you have a higher chance of actually surviving but a lower chance of getting home,
Mm-hmm.
and he wants to go home, I feel like that's where emotions are more important,
Mm-hmm.
because the AI might be programmed keep these people alive,
Right.
where his motivation is get home. So he'd rather be home than alive and never able to get home.
Right.
Even if that means there's a greater risk of dying.
My biggest thing whenever it came to this
Mm-hmm.
was when people say AI will just take over the world.
Okay.
That, they'll just learn everything and then they'll enslave us right away. What I thought right away was AI, no matter what, at its base is codes. It's code.
Yeah.
It's 1 and 0s that we manipulated.
Yeah.
How could we not just write code in there that helps us, that makes sure that we're safe? Sort of like robotic law.
Like the 3 laws of robotics.
Right. The 3 laws of robotics. That in sci-fi has kept these robots safe, not robots safe, but the humans safe, no matter what. As they could never hurt a human, they could never go against, they can never make a decision that hurts a human, and there's one more that goes with it. How could we not implement those into an AI? And what I found out when looking through this is that we can use it through generation learning of teaching values that humans would value. So it's not making a decision that an AI would make. It's making a decision sort of that a human would make, learning that this is what a human would make, or this would be in the best interest of a human, not as this is just the best option. This is the best option that they would make themselves, or what a human would make.
I feel like at that point, you're not creating a super intelligence. You're making a robot that functions like a human. So, like, maybe in that case, you'd be able to create artificially intelligent robot soldiers that could fight a war for you.
Okay.
And they'll act like humans. But at the same time, would it not be more beneficial in that case to just have super intelligent robot soldiers? That comes back to, what if they retaliate against their own forces?
Right.
Back to what you said about the 3 laws of robotics. A robot may not injure a human being. A robot must obey orders given to it by a human. A robot must protect its own existence as long as such protection does not conflict with the first or second law. And I feel like these are all things that you can program into a robot.
Right.
So, like, with neural networks and the way that they work, there's 2 videos that I had pulled up here while you were talking. One is by 3 Blue, 1 Brown. It's called But What It Is, a Neural Network. And it just talks about the way that neural networks work and, like, problem solving. And then there's another one by Carey, K-H, C-A-R-Y-K-H.
These will be down in the show notes.
Yeah. And they're both about, like, the way machines learn. Carey, specifically, he's a college student, and he is a computer science major. He makes a lot of programs about learning and replicating something that humans do. Obviously, he's just one college student in his dorm room figuring these things out for himself, reading the work of other people. But it's like he tried to replicate jazz with AI.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
like he
cool.
gave it a MIDI input of jazz music, and it tried to spit it back out. So you would need a sample of, like, decisions that humans make to be fed to this robot. And the more information you give it, the more it'll be able to learn. But I think that I think at that point, like I had said, you're not making super intelligence, you're making humans.
But is it better to make a human-based intelligence instead of a super intelligence? Because
if you're going to be sending in it to war to save human lives,
let's not
risk robot lives.
Let's not put it in war. Let's just take it out of war in general.
Okay.
If we wanted to make a intelligence to help us throughout life in general,
like artificial intelligent self-driving cars.
Yeah.
Autos.
Autos, possibly. Wouldn't it be better to have something that thinks as a human at that point, because it will be integrated into our lives in general, thus making it more common of what we would actually think and what we'd actually do.
This is a scenario specifically with self-driving cars, autos, that I'd say it's better not to have a human influence on what the AI chooses to do. The programming for an artificial intelligence should be obey all traffic laws, do exactly what is expected, right? Interact with all the other cars around you, send information about your location, all that. The issue comes in when someone jaywalks across the street, the car goes to do what it's supposed to be. That's sensors, you have to stop. Not like it's theorized that with artificial intelligence, the risks would be so much lower in driving. The number of deaths would go down dramatically.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Because they are able to interact with each other.
Mm-hmm.
So something like that, I don't think should be under the influence of human decisions.
Mm-hmm.
It should be follow laws, which were made by humans. But
Now, for even self-driving cars to work, do you think it would have to be all or nothing? Because recently, I talked about it with my dad. He was talking about he would never drive a self-driving car.
mm-hmm.
He said it's too dangerous to him. If it's going to work, it has to be a whole network of them. It's either all cars are self-driving
Yep.
or no cars are self-driving.
Mm-hmm.
Because essentially, you still have human error in one of them, and the other one, you don't.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think it needs to have a whole network, or do you think we could get to a point where we could just still use self-driving cars?
I think the safest way is to have every car self-driving.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think that's necessary to make it just even a little bit safer.
Right.
So if you have a self-driving auto
Mm-hmm.
and there's other cars around it, and one car like goes to change lanes, the auto is in one lane, they're about to hit it, the auto will move itself because of sensors that it has.
Right.
This situation could be avoided if they were both autos,
Mm-hmm.
but they're not. So I feel like it would be safer because a human, maybe in one lane, is distracted. The human in the other lane goes to change lanes and they hit,
Mm-hmm.
where that wouldn't happen with a
Right.
self-driving car.
The problem with self-driving cars nowadays is that people still take it as you can just not do what you can just do whatever you want while it's
Yeah.
driving. That actually happened with, I think it was a Tesla when
Mhm.
they got into a car accident. It was the first death ever from a self-driving car.
Yeah.
What was happening is a truck was turning, it hit it, but the truck was white.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't able to sense it because of how the light reflected off and everything. The sensors didn't quite pick it up.
Yep.
So it killed the driver.
Mm-hmm.
And they were talking about should we still have autos on the road and things like that. When having these cars, especially now,
Mm-hmm.
you still have to pay attention to the road.
Yeah.
You have to be as attentive as
Mhm.
you would be if you were just driving the car.
Yeah.
This is more of an assistance. It's not driving you places. It's helping you drive places.
Yeah.
That's a problem with it nowadays,
Mhm.
that people are relying on it too much. Well, at least in Tesla.
With where technology is now, I think it's important for people to still be paying attention
Mhm.
for circumstances like that. I also think that if the programming had been better on the Tesla,
Mhm.
it'd be more likely to be able to sense the semi that was coming at it.
Right. I'm sure they did as much as they could to
Yeah.
fix that right afterwards.
But my ideal future, you would be able to call a car to you. You
Mhm.
wouldn't have to own one. You could call a car to you. You open the door, you get in. There's not a steering wheel. It's just a room. The car will drive you somewhere. You don't have to pay attention or anything, like
Mhm.
taking a train somewhere, but it's just you.
Right. Oh, that'd be ideal.
That'd be But in that scenario, no one would own a car.
Yeah, that's true.
They would all have to be autos.
Mm-hmm. Now, if we move back to superintelligence,
Okay.
I sort of posed this idea to you recently, and I want to get this on the record.
Okay.
I think that the next big person, like an Einstein
Yeah.
or Stephen Hawking,
Okay.
is going to be a superintelligence.
Like the creator of a superintelligence.
Yeah, like a creator of the superintelligence is going to make
Yeah.
this being that is going to be smarter than everything else.
Mhm.
That is going to make these breakthroughs, like Stephen Hawking or
So you
Einstein
mean
have done.
that like the next person who will
in
create
quotes.
great breakthroughs will be a super intelligent computer program?
I think we're at the point where we're so close to AI and superintelligence that there is a possibility that we'll have maybe one or two people
Mm-hmm.
that are extremely smart in this world, can make a few breakthroughs. But when we hit superintelligence,
Yeah.
we'll hit a point that is some sort of scientific revolution, such as if Newton was around,
Yeah.
all these ideas he came up with, and all these theories and whatnot.
Mhm.
This will happen because of superintelligence. What do you think?
I think that could totally happen.
Mhm.
That there'll be a lot of breakthroughs that come. Like with people like Stephen Hawking or Einstein, both of them made great strides in their fields, but it's not like the whole world lurched forward because of it.
Right.
From a super intelligent computer program, the whole world could start increasing at an exponential rate.
Mm-hmm.
The issue with that is computing ability versus our programming ability,
Right.
where we are limited by physics to be able to compute at such a high level. And that's
Right.
where quantum computers come in.
If we talk about the Earth actually lurching forward and these
Yeah.
kind of things, it would be another revolution, such as like the agricultural revolution or an industrial revolution. And when the agricultural revolution came, the growth rate of the economy was about 2 centuries. So every 2 centuries, your economy would double.
Yeah.
The industrial revolution came with about every 6.3 years, the economy would
Mhm.
double. If we had super intelligence, it's theorized that we would be growing about every 2 weeks.
Okay.
Our economy would double and double and double because
Mhm.
we have all this knowledge. We have so
Yeah.
much computing.
Mhm.
But it brings to the point of, could we even compute that much without quantum computers?
Yeah.
Do you know the constraints of what we need to like make a quantum computer?
Like, we have quantum computers now.
Mm-hmm.
They're probably eventually going to look like computers from the 50s do to us today.
Right.
But so the issue is you can only get the parts inside a normal computer so close before they interact, they interfere with one another.
Mm-hmm.
Quantum computers, I don't actually have a great understanding of, but to my knowledge, they avoid this issue.
Mm-hmm.
A problem that I have though with a superintelligence increasing the economy is that could it divide our society into people who are able to use the superintelligence
Mm-hmm.
and people who aren't able to get access to it.
Right.
Like if you are able to have a super intelligent program invest money for you,
Mm-hmm.
you'd have to pay for that,
Of course.
and they'll make more money, and it'll just create a divide between classes.
So more people, a greater gap
Yes.
between the lower and the higher class.
Mm-hmm.
So with this dividing
Mm-hmm.
of the two classes,
Yeah.
what would you say about a universal basic income?
Okay, so the idea that I have behind a universal basic income is I am not an expert in political science, which is not a real science, or like
Ooh, shots fired today on the podcast.
or like economics.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like the way a universal basic income would work the best is if nobody had a job. The entire world, every service that we need
Mm-hmm.
was run by artificial intelligence.
Okay, but then how do we get things that we want? How do we incentivize like putting money into the economy? If I get the same amount
Mhm.
every month, I can't always be buying my MacBook.
Mhm.
I can't buy a MacBook. Then how would we
If
gain
you're
more
an
money?
employee on a salary,
Well, but if we're all not supposed to work,
if we would all have to make the same amount of money,
right?
well, there could still be businesses.
Mm-hmm.
So like you save up enough money to where you can have a business
Mm-hmm.
and people are able to pay money for your business. You'll be able to make money that way.
Okay.
But if it wasn't expected of people to have a job,
Mm-hmm.
because the whole world will operate whether or not humans are working in it,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like a basic universal income would work in that situation.
So with the other situation where we give everybody a base salary,
Mm-hmm.
say $10,000 a month,
Yeah.
per household,
$10,000 a month.
that's
That's
not,
$120,000 a year.
boom.
$1,000 a month.
Okay, $1,000 a month. They should just stop working.
Mm-hmm.
Is that sort of what you would think?
I think that we would have to have our economy in a point where we can support everyone here.
Mm-hmm.
We would have to have automation to an extent where you don't have to work.
Right.
I feel like at that point, if people have money, they're given money, like from the government,
Mhm.
which they can then use to spend, in that way it would work. But
Mhm.
then really all of the money, growing businesses, comes from the government.
Mm-hmm.
And then the government has a lot of power.
Yeah,
And
that's
that
sometimes not too
Yeah.
good.
So I feel like there's a lot of ideas about what would make it work, but you don't know
Mhm.
until you try it.
Yeah, one of my biggest things that from the small amount of research I've done, so we
Mhm.
got to take this all with a grain of salt,
Yes.
is the money the government gives,
Mhm.
cannot be regulated in any way.
Yeah.
It is your money. You do
Yeah.
whatever you want with it.
Mhm.
Because if we talk about the welfare system,
Yep.
there's times where you'll get money per month.
Mhm.
But if you get a job and then you make X amount of
Yeah.
X amount of dollars, that money right away is taken from you and you're
Mhm.
back into poverty.
Yeah.
So it's not meant to incentivize
Mhm.
not laziness, but
Yeah.
passiveness.
Everybody has to get this amount of money, despite whether or not they're making money.
Right. And they should be able to spend it that whatever way they want.
Mhm.
I think that's one of the key factors when it comes to doing this whole experiment. There's a problem though when it comes with America, really with any political thing if we think about it, is that it's so big
Mhm.
and such an overarching government that it's so hard to control everything.
Yeah.
Like there's school systems in Europe, maybe like we could say Germany, Sweden,
Mhm.
very well made school systems, I
Yeah.
would say.
Norway.
Norway, baby. Yeah, Norway. And people try to compare it to that. Say
Okay.
we should do our things like this country.
Mhm.
But that's so much harder to do on a grand scale.
The United States is huge.
Yeah.
We have the width of an entire continent. That's very, very big.
I travel 3 hours to go cross state. Some people travel 3 hours and go cross 2 countries.
Yeah.
So,
Like in the United Kingdom, it's not an uncommon thing to go to France for like a special brunch. For us to go to the nearest country, where that'd be Canada or Mexico,
my main man,
it can take you hours and hours to get there.
Right.
Where we are here in the great state of Michigan, not so much as some other places. But like,
Represent.
if you're somewhere, you're in
Arizona.
no, because Arizona you can just like hop to
Montana.
Mexico. Montana.
That's sort of in the
If
middle.
you're in Wyoming,
Arkansas.
okay. If you're in Arkansas, fantastic example. It's gonna take you more than
Oh
2
my
days
God.
straight of driving to get to Mexico or Canada.
Right.
The United States is giant. So there's not like one system that would work for everybody everywhere.
Right.
And perhaps it'd be better to have things more controlled state to state than by an overarching government.
I think that could work. What sucks nowadays is that everything is so ingrained
Mm-hmm.
into America that it's like nobody wants to change, and it would be such
Yeah.
a shift to
Mhm.
to give the states so much power
Yeah.
that even then it's like, would it work? I mean, I'm sure it would work at one
Yeah.
point, but how would the beginning process be? I have no idea.
Yeah.
It's
I
all
don't know
speculation.
enough about universal basic income to give like a really informed opinion on
Oh, yeah.
what would make it work.
Oh yeah, for sure.
The majority of my knowledge comes from the recent Kurzgesagt video on universal basic income. They bring up some good points in it, and that's about the extent of my knowledge.
But little advice for everybody: don't just watch a video and then spew opinions on it like we did. Research it a little bit, get different opinions. That's it. That's it. Just gonna say that right now.
Oh, hey. Didn't see you there.
Oh, hey.
So, Antonio, quick question.
What's up?
Did you know that we're on iTunes and YouTube?
And Stitcher as well.
Wow. And you can subscribe to us in all of these places?
Amazing. Just a reminder, everybody, if you like this podcast, give us a follow, give us a rate. We'd really appreciate it. Also, if you want to find us on, let's say, Twitter, it's SI Podcast _ because we could not get SI Podcast.
Someone stole it from
Somebody
us.
stole it already. Don't listen to that podcast. So, Joe,
Mhm.
what do you think about social media, real quick? Because you were having a little bit of a problem with this not a few days ago, a few minutes ago, a few
Yeah.
months ago, all the time.
We had paused the recording for a minute, and I got off on some tangent about things.
He was getting upset.
We were talking about our personal association to the podcast, like as private citizens versus Antonio and Joe, who have this podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And I was talking about like linking personal social media to this podcast. And I think both of us came up to the conclusion that we're going to try to remain
Just
Yeah.
we're Antonio and Joe. That's it. We're on this podcast.
Yes.
That's how we want to stay that way.
But then I was talking about that would give me a fantastic excuse to delete my own social media. To me, with the age that we're at, the only thing I need is Reddit.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I don't need Reddit. I enjoy Reddit sincerely as a social media platform. And then Snapchat, which I hate Snapchat so much. It's
Why?
made of hieroglyphics. There's not words on Snapchat. You know how you get to the story button? Maybe a little book picture? No, there's 3 dots in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen that you click on. How does that make any sense?
It's the therefore symbol.
What?
Therefore? 3 dots, therefore?
No clue what that is.
What? Oh, baby.
But I don't like
Yeah.
Snapchat. I think it's stupid that you can only have like a small amount of information expressed at once. I don't like it.
See, I like that you can only do it for a certain amount of time. What I don't like, what they've done now, is that you can string Snapchats together.
Yeah.
So instead of having a 10-second limit and then having to post it and then go back on,
Mhm.
you can just hold it down and essentially record a video.
Yeah.
I was at the Yellow Wolf concert recently, right?
Mhm.
And I saw this guy in front of me, and he starts holding down the Snapchat
Oh,
button.
man.
And I stopped everything I was doing and watched him. 10 seconds, 20 seconds,
Yeah.
30 seconds.
You can record
He
up to
went
like a minute now,
He went
can't
up
you?
to the whole minute.
My
I was like,
goodness.
what are you doing with your life?
Snapchat started out with a purpose, and they very quickly lost it. The whole point was like a short little bit of information, which I don't like. It's kind of why I don't like Twitter. But I
Mhm.
also don't like that Twitter now has a higher amount of information. I just don't really like Twitter as a platform. The therefore sign.
3
Okay.
dots.
3 dots. I don't understand why it's used for Snapchat.
I don't think it's meant to be used for Snapchat, but they just put it like that.
Yeah.
But it's there.
But I would like to be able to get rid of most of my social media.
Mhm. You see, I like Twitter to an extent.
Hmm.
I don't like it for the social aspect of keeping in touch with somebody.
Yes.
If you're going to do that, get a Facebook. But I
Mhm.
don't care enough to be in touch with anybody. So I don't get a Facebook. I hate it. Twitter gives me a chance to either get into the mind of somebody I really enjoy or keep up with what they're doing. Maybe I'll follow Vsauce. Maybe I'll follow CGP Grey. I'll follow some bands I want to I want to watch.
Yeah.
And they'll show me when a new video is up, what they're thinking, what they think about certain topics, when the new show is, and that kind of thing.
Mhm.
That's how I think Twitter should be used. Short snippets to keep you updated on the life of people, not to keep in social interaction with people that you know. It should be completely anonymous.
Hmm.
And then Snapchat.
Yeah.
Again, keep it short formed. Get these stupid
Yeah.
ads off of my.
What I do like about
my
Snapchat
news.
is that you send it and it's gone. That was in air quotes, the gone part.
Right.
But I do like that you don't really have access to it unless
Right.
you like screenshot or like screen record it or whatever.
I don't want to know what Ariel Winter wore last night to the Emmys or what she's wearing every day. Please stop it, Snapchat. I hate. You see those all the time?
Yeah, you get the ads on
It's
Snapchat.
not even ads. It's the stupid stories, and
Mhm.
it's like all the stories I don't want to see. Maybe Daily Mail.
You can
things
hide
like that.
those.
I hate it.
You can hide
You can
them.
hide those.
Yeah.
This is a revolution. I need to see this because it boggles my mind. It's the same thing every day, especially with Ariel Winter. I don't know why she's always been in the news, but it's like, what's she wearing today?
See, I get like ones that are like Snapchat users can post to like
I
a
like-
Snapchat communal story,
I can do that.
but I don't get the ads from like magazines and stuff.
How?
Because if you press and hold on them, there'll be a button that says hide story, and I hide them all.
Snapchat just got a little bit better for me.
I still hate Snapchat. Speaking of Twitter and keeping up with creators,
You.
my Twitter, I follow exactly 6 people on Twitter. I follow a robot that I made
Haha. Yes.
that tweets random things for me. I follow my girlfriend. I follow Vsauce, CGP Grey, the 2 creators that I actually care what they have to say on Twitter.
Mhm.
I have a skiing company that makes the skis that I use. And then I have a guy who was on YouTube a while back and then had killed himself, and I didn't have the heart to
And
unfollow.
Antonio.
I do not follow Antonio
wait
on
a
Twitter.
minute.
No.
Wait a minute. Dumb.
But yeah, like that. I don't like Twitter. I don't care what anybody has to say on Twitter, except for pretty much Vsauce and CGP Grey, because like those are the two people on YouTube I will watch every single one of their videos when it comes out. And I think that both of those people are interesting people.
So let's take it back a second.
Okay.
When we talked about sort of the anonymity of being a creator, of keeping yourself as this product, essentially,
Yeah.
not making yourself personal in it, bringing your personal life into it. Is there a greater benefit to doing that opposed to actually putting yourself into it? Do you think there are any benefits as to putting your personal life into it and things like that? Keeping
I feel like being a person online, like so someone that I think does a good job with it is the YouTube channel Veritasium. It's Derek is the guy who runs it, and it's like you see his face, he talks to you, you know Derek, you kind of know where he's at and all that stuff, and you get to know him a little bit, and you know who he's involved with, like the different creators that he talks to. But it's like he doesn't have this YouTube channel for himself. He has it as Veritasium.
Right.
Which I feel like is a good way that if you're going to be a private citizen with an online presence, to do that. To me, though, I would rather have an online personality and a offline private citizen.
So you'd want them to be two different people?
Essentially, yeah. Because, like, that's where I'm at currently, like, with my personal Reddit account. Nothing with that and that, like, whole sphere is associated with my Snapchat or Instagram or Twitter, which I feel like is a great thing that Reddit does, where you are your own person on Reddit and you have pretty solid anonymity.
I like that with Reddit, but when it comes to things maybe as making video content or a podcast, I'd want to sort of keep the person consistent as I am, as how I am on the podcast and how I'm talking. Maybe I will talk a little less formal if I talk to a person, but I want to be the same person through and through.
Yeah.
So when you talk to me, it's like, hey, Tony on the podcast, he's an all right guy. Not online, he sucks. I don't want that.
Well, like CGP Grey does a good job at like staying separate as a private person versus his online. And it's like CGP Grey, the guy online, is like his own character.
Yeah.
He's his own fully formed person. CGP Grey, the guy whose house people go to, from what they've talked about, he doesn't act the same. He's a pretty different person. And I like the way that he's separate from his content. A thing that he does talk about on occasion, though, is he doesn't really have a problem with being recognized in public. CGP Grey's video channel, very popular. Hello Internet, the podcast, very successful. But
I love that. I love Hello Internet.
It's a very good podcast. But like he doesn't have
an
an issue with getting recognized out in public. He says the only time it'll really happen, he'll be like in a line and he'll say something, someone will turn around and go, CGP Grey? Because they'll recognize his voice.
He does have a very distinct voice.
He does.
It's so normal but so distinct at the same time.
Yeah, he has like a fairly deep voice too. Like on like the Cortex subreddit and the Hello Internet subreddit, people are always talking about like, oh man, CGP Grey should be a professional. Well, I guess he is a professional podcaster, but they always talk about how his voice always sounds better than his co-host.
I would love if he like narrated books.
Oh yeah.
I think he could. I think if he at one point was to stop making content like that, he probably would start doing things like reading books out loud to people, called narrating it. There we go.
Summarize what we've talked about, though. I definitely like the idea of being separate, both on like my online podcast Joe versus me, who I am as just a private person.
I'd like to stay sort of consistent throughout, but to keep it separated. I don't want people in my life. Well, I'd love if someone would recognize me. Don't get me wrong. But I wouldn't want, like, so much recognition, I guess.
Yeah, I don't want people to, like... I don't want people to know who I am.
Mm-hmm.
I want people to know who Joe, the guy on the Something Interesting podcast,
Right.
is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Whenever I think of this, I think of the Paul brothers
Oh boy.
and how, let's even just take Jake Paul,
Mm-hmm.
how his last house, because they got kicked out of it,
Yeah.
was a business and people would crowd out around it.
Mm-hmm.
That is scary to me. I don't
Yeah.
understand.
The idea of people
Anybody's-
being able to come to you.
Oh yeah, or even just like allowing it. Who
Yeah.
does that? It's your private household.
Mhm.
You're in a
Their
whole
whole
entire
ecosystem
yeah.
fed off of that, though. They're kind of in a different situation than like the branch of the internet we're falling into.
I know, but that's always what I think
Yeah.
of when I think of anonymity in the internet, because that just gives me like kind of the
Like whenever they
chills.
have like when Shia LaBeouf had his "He Will Not Divide Us" flags,
Mm-hmm.
you see what the internet can do when they want to.
Oh yeah,
That scares me.
oh yeah.
That's why I want to be a separate person from Joe, who does the podcast.
Would you like to explain real quick what happened with the Shia thing? 'Cause I can do
So
it if you want,
originally,
'cause it's crazy.
he had a live stream in, I'm pretty sure, New York.
Yep.
Where he just had a camera set up, and people would go stand in front of this camera and chant, "He will not divide us." It's like an
It was a
anti.
24-hour live stream.
Yeah.
Anybody can go in front of it.
It was
at
like
any
an
time.
anti-Donald Trump campaign soon after the election.
Mhm.
That got taken down. He got arrested for sexual harassment because he licked some random dude on stream.
Well, they were screaming both. They were screaming back and forth at each other.
Yeah.
This person was essentially trying to troll the stream and everybody there.
Yeah.
And then Shia took it too far.
Shia's not a very sane person.
He should have realized that this guy didn't believe those things.
Mhm.
He's just trying to screw with this whole system. And he should have realized that when he made this
Mhm.
whole live stream. Of course, people are going to come
Yeah.
and be like that.
So beyond this, he put up a flag in a location which he did not specify. It was just, he set up a new live stream. It was a flag that said, "He will not divide us," white with black text,
Mhm.
and a shot of the sky. 4chan, we all know 4chan. You love it or you hate
The
it.
armpit of the internet.
But they figured out, based on air traffic, plane trajectory versus its times, how the sun moved through the sky. They figured out the exact location of this flag, and they went and took it down.
Mhm. They also used recent Shia sightings around there,
Mm-hmm.
astrology,
Yeah.
and I think even how the wind direction and things like
Yeah.
that was.
And it's things like that.
wow.
When people want to find something, they totally can.
Even in his most recent one, which I don't know if it's still up anymore.
Mhm.
I'm pretty sure it's not. So what he did after that is they took down the flag.
Mm-hmm.
They put a Donald Trump hat,
Yeah.
strung it up, and I think something else, maybe a Pepe thing,
I have no clue.
possibly. I don't remember. So what he did after that is he just put it in a room with a camera,
Mhm.
flag on a wall, no sound,
Yeah.
no nothing. They still found the room
Yeah.
through I don't remember exactly what, but
yeah.
it was
They figured out where it is
Yeah.
because the internet's crazy.
Shia sightings. They started shining lights in the windows. And
Yeah.
they're like, this is it. We found it. But at that point, it's like, what can you do?
Yeah.
It's in a locked room. Are you gonna break into the room and do that?
Mhm.
Now that's breaking and entering, and that's a felony.
Yeah.
But it just shows, like you said,
Yeah.
the power that these people have.
Because like even with where I had just talked about like the people that I follow on Twitter, you could cross-reference these things, even just CGP Grey and Vsauce. I'm sure there's a huge cross-section in that Venn diagram of people who follow that,
Mhm.
but that narrows it down. Like I know that like at some point with some level of popularity, they're gonna figure out who you are. Like CGP Grey, you can figure out who he is.
Right.
Like
what he looks like and
Yeah.
all that stuff.
like I have like an understanding of who he is, just like from other things that I've heard. But like to me, I never went looking for him
Right.
because he is not the CGP Grey online.
Mhm.
He's a guy who makes YouTube videos under the name of CGP Grey.
Yeah.
CGP Grey is the narration for these videos, the guy in the podcast.
Right.
Those things.
Another thing, if we're gonna take it back one more time in
Okay.
this episode with social media,
This is going to be a throwback episode.
is how young
Mm-hmm.
kids are getting
Yeah.
and social media.
Yes.
I don't think these kids realize. Let's start off with
Mhm.
me. I was 13,
Yeah.
12, sorry, when I got
Mhm.
a Facebook.
Oh wow.
Everything My 12-year-old mind was thinking, not everything, but enough.
Yeah.
Went on this Facebook page.
Mm-hmm.
If you find it, which it is deactivated,
Yeah.
because I am not allowing this to happen, you will see a history of how terrible, how cringy, how just stupid I was.
And everything you said, if someone finds that, that's your opinion now.
Exactly.
You're on record as having said that thing.
So, I see so many kids just having social media and posting and posting.
Yeah.
Like, the presidential elections at one point, they're not going to be a presidential election. They're going to be a trial at one point.
Yeah.
Because you're going to say something stupid as a 19-year-old.
Yeah. Who's the least bad candidate?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's just... So, you have a history of how bad of a person you are.
Yeah.
Not even how bad of a person, how stupid of a person you are, how cringy.
Yeah.
Why would you want that?
Yeah.
And so when I have a kid, I'm not going to not allow them to have social media, but I'm going to give them a warning.
Yeah.
Because they have to learn this themselves.
Like, we had talked about this in my composition class, and my English professor was talking about how he grew up at the start of the internet. Like, he wasn't born with the internet really being popular, but he grew up with the internet around. And talking about when he grew up, he got social media, but grew tired of it very quickly. And then another kid in my class, he's like 24 or something. He was talking about how even just having like this little bit different of age from like people that he sees that are like 18 or 19, he's gone through like social media and gotten over it. And it's like, I feel like for me, social media has been around from such a young point. Like, I was in 8th grade and a girl convinced me to get an Instagram. That's right. Did it for a girl. But she convinced me to get an Instagram.
That's why we do anything.
But she convinced me to get an Instagram. And it's like, I was so young and I'm just like tired of it now. Yeah.
No, I got bored. Well, I didn't mean to do this for a long time, but at a Christmas party we went to, Thanksgiving, sorry, because it's not that time yet.
Yeah, Christmas is coming up. Hasn't passed.
I just sat on the couch for 20 minutes and deleted everything from my Instagram account. And I realized, holy wow.
Yeah.
Because it was so bad. Everything.
Yeah.
There was no good content in there. I mean, sure, I'd post a picture and I'd be like, that's a pretty cool picture. But most of it, I'd say 99% of it is absolute trash.
Yeah.
I don't like it.
Yeah, this is why I don't have like a Twitter, because then every stupid thing that I just decided would be funny to tweet in that moment, it's still there years later.
Yeah.
Like my Instagram, that's just a record of things that at some point I thought was good and then later can feel badly about because they weren't as good as I thought they were.
No, I had to do that with Twitter. I went through like a purging of that as well. Not of everything, because I don't care, but just the stuff that's like, that's stupid.
Yeah. Well, should we ask Reddit?
Let's ask Reddit.
What are some good questions to ask on a first date?
Music type, like what kind of music they like. Do they read? And what social media do they use? You could get a good idea of how somebody is, I think, with those 3 questions. But that's what I would care about, especially with music. I want to know what this person listens to.
I agree.
I don't like, though, when people are like, "Oh, I listen to everything but rap or everything but country."
I'm like, no, give me the artists you're into right now.
Exactly. What's your favorite album? I don't have a favorite album. What's a good song?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, like every girl I've ever been involved with started from me being like, what music are you into currently?
That's what I do. Anybody who comes into work, when like after, well, at first I gave them 2 weeks, because in 2 weeks and they're still here, I'm like, all right, now I can remember your name.
Yeah.
And then I say, what kind of music do you like? And I figure out, hey, this is what this person is like, and this is how they should be treated. You like country? Smack you in the face. Get out of my kitchen. Net neutrality. No.
When is the vote on net neutrality?
It's today, I thought it was.
Wow.
You saw that question? I was like, what do you mean it got removed?
What's your favorite mobile application?
Let me look at my phone.
Okay.
I mean, right off the bat, probably YouTube.
Okay.
or the podcast app. No, sorry, YouTube, Spotify, or the podcast app. Those
Yeah.
are the three I use consistently
Yeah.
every day. 68,000 minutes in Spotify, baby.
Yeah.
Though most of them are podcasts.
That's true. I totally know what you mean. I spend a lot of time on YouTube because there's just like so much information out there and so many different people.
There's a lot of times where I consider just taking YouTube 100% off of my phone.
Yeah.
Because it takes so much time out of my
Yeah.
days.
What I've gotten really into is like, do you remember back in the day when you'd come across someone's personal website and it's just coded in raw HTML and it has like a list of all the projects they've worked on?
Yeah.
I love those. Those are my
Why?
favorite. I spend hours just looking at like this stuff that people make, and some of them are still being updated today, but they look like garbage. And that's my favorite thing, is when it's entirely about the content and there's just loads of it and it has nothing to do with like making it flashy.
That reminds me of the Nobel Prize website. There's nothing good about that website.
No.
Sure, it has all the information you need,
Yeah.
but if you look at it, it's an atrocity.
Yeah.
But it's
I
still
love those.
basic
Though.
HTML. What isn't socially acceptable now but will be in 50 years? What do you think?
Female nipples.
Really? Oh yeah, I can see
50
that.
years,
Yeah,
probably.
probably.
Who do you admire most?
Who do I admire most?
Yes.
This is gonna sound kind of corny,
Mm-hmm.
but my mom.
Your mom?
I admire my mom so much. She's gone through great hardship, and she's always been there for us. Like no matter what, if I never needed anything, she'd go through tried and tribulation to get that thing for me. I mean, even when we were struggling at times, and I needed money for something, she would find a way to get me that money.
Yes.
And I always look up to that.
Mm-hmm.
What about you? Do you have anybody that you like really look up to?
My grandfather, who had recently passed away,
Mm-hmm.
had always been like a role model for me, because like he's the person that I try to be, where he will sit and listen and not say a word, and then someone will ask him something and he will have so much to say about it, and I just admire that so much.
Mm-hmm.
And he was the hardest working person I ever met. He was in his 80s. He had cancer. He had to carry around an oxygen tank with him. My dad and I had to go cut down some trees for him. And you know what? He drove his truck out there with a mobile oxygen tank, sat on the back of his truck. And then when we finished cutting it down, he couldn't help but get up and do as much raking as his body could.
Oh my God.
Yeah, he was the hardest working person I've ever known.
That is something you don't see, in my opinion, that much anymore.
Yeah, people, like, something I've always respected about you is you work hard. And I feel like a lot of it is just like the way you were brought up, but you don't quit.
Right.
You always feel like you need to be doing something.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. So, you're good at this thing. So what's your favorite sort of way to make somebody mad?
To make someone okay, you have to be really good at reading people
Yeah.
to know what's gonna irk them very quickly.
And
But,
he can read people like he's reading the Sunday newspaper.
But like the best surefire way to make someone really bad very quickly is to just like anything they say, just say, yeah, but this other thing could totally be true. And just like don't really listen to their opinion, which I feel like is an awful thing to do to someone, but that'll make them so mad so quickly.
Yeah, you do that. And it can be useful.
Uh-huh.
Hold on.
I use it as a tool to get people to say things they wouldn't normally say.
It can be useful to make somebody think in a different way, to
Yeah.
kind of expand what they're thinking, but it can make someone so mad,
Yeah.
so quick.
To me, I
Oof.
know if I'm winning an argument, if someone expresses a point, I use a counterpoint, and they wholeheartedly reject what I just said, because they know that what I just said definitely has some grounds worth arguing for now.
Right. That's the one thing I always try to keep in mind with anybody when arguing is like, one, you can't involve emotion whatsoever when
Yeah.
it comes to this. You have to be as brought out from the argument as possible.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot have emotion into it.
No.
And if there is something that,
Yeah.
challenges your view, you have to stop.
Mm-hmm. If the other person
Stop.
starts getting emotional, I know I'm winning.
Exactly. And if like Joe, maybe he'll say something that's like maybe I'm like, oh shit, that's actually true.
Uh-huh.
Oops. I have to stop, or when anybody does, you got to stop and think.
Yeah.
Either what are you going to rebuttal or agree with them.
Yeah.
But you can't keep going. You have to stop. It's a big thing. Breathe a little bit.
We definitely have friends that will just keep going no matter what.
What are you talking about? Never heard of that ever happening. And
Students of Reddit, what are you doing in your winter break?
I mean, I'm going. What do you mean I'm going home? I'm staying home. I'm doing what I do. I'm gonna work probably, sadly, but I'm gonna work. What about yourself? I know you're home for the winter break.
I'm working on a few personal side projects, and then I'm gonna be taking a trip up north for a little bit.
How long are you gonna be gone?
Not like a little bit over a weekend, like 4 days, like
Okay.
a long weekend.
Hey.
Hey.
I don't know if you'll have anything for this, but what is something someone has done that you never forgive them for? Is there anything anyone's done that you thought
Nothing
never
I'm gonna
forgive them.
express here.
nothing?
No.
Okay, that makes sense.
Oh, what's an artist that you just discovered and love?
I'm gonna go off a music artist because I don't
Yeah,
discover
that's
like
what I'm guessing. I
other
actually did discover an artist recently. He does oil paintings of mountains, and they're the coolest thing.
oh nice. New artist. See, here's the thing. I haven't been listening to new artists recently. I've been going back. I've been listening to like Waves, and Charles Mingus, and Miles Davis again.
You went very diverse. You started with like beach punk rock to like modern jazz, and
Yeah.
then to like old jazz.
Yeah. I've just been getting back into those people again.
I recently have discovered the musician Michael. I'm gonna slaughter this last name.
Bublé.
Probably. Nope. Michael Kiwanuka. He's really good.
What's he play?
He sings. He might play guitar as well, but he's like, it's kind of like electric blues, but like a little slower and,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. it's just kind of slowed down.
Electric blues. Oh no. Man, internet's not working.
Oh no.
That's what this whole podcast relies on.
Well, I guess that's the end of the podcast.